So on today's call, we have Tristan Shepherd. Tristan is an independent director and writer. Actually, Tristan, how do you define yourself? This is probably an interesting question
Oh,
to begin with.
yeah, that is very good. I think that's probably pretty fair. I think director. I think I define myself as a director. Writing is something that I've moved into recently in
Uh-huh.
order to try and sort of essentially to create projects that I have creative control over, essentially.
Yeah, 100%.
But I define myself as a director, and then on the broader sense, I just define myself as a filmmaker, as in, I do a little bit of everything. Editing is probably my other chief skill.
Yeah, of course, of course. And your company's Take Cover Films, is that
That's correct.
correct?
Yeah, yeah.
And you've had many successes with the network as a member. I mean, how do we, so this will be a free flowing conversation, and I'm sure like we will jump into many different bits. But let's take it from the top. How did you become? How did you move into filmmaking?
I trained as an actor at Lambda. I
Mm.
graduated from the BA course there in 2009. I always loved film. It's part of the reason that I became an actor. And as I came out of drama school, a friend of mine, who's also part of Take Cover Films, um, we began making online improvised shorts, and then sort of just slowly, out of kind of being a frustrated actor, essentially,
Mm.
started making films to cast myself as the lead. And then just sort of slowly fell in love with things on the other side of the camera. And then in terms of making a living, it's just I started to develop these technical skills, and was able to just actually pay my way via filmmaking, which I was never really able to do with acting.
Oh wow! So that's really interesting. So the let's take it back to the frustrations as an actor. What was that? How did that come about?
Well, I mean, first of all, it's just, I mean, anything in the arts. Like I would be naive to say like directing is somehow simpler and easier, and there are more
Yeah.
opportunities in it. But um, yeah, it's acting in particular is an extremely competitive. I had a good agent for a while anyway. I went up for good auditions. I did get some good jobs and stuff, but ultimately I was just finding myself working, in call centers, or I
Mm.
gardened for many years, while I was sort of waiting for these auditions to come in. And, all the time sort of chipping away at my own kind of personal projects and stuff. And yeah, also I think as well, like acting means like too much to me. It was very like torturous. Like, I wanted to be the best. I wanted to be the best actor ever. And I'm a good actor. I am.
Yeah.
I'm the kind of person that like it, like especially on stage, like it would need to. I wanted to give perfect performances, and so if anything went wrong in it, I'm not that kind of actor. It's like, oh, this is great, I'm just gonna roll with.
Yeah.
Like it would play on my mind then for like the
Do you know
rest of.
what? I can 100% sympathize with that. For those that don't know, I also trained as an actor, and
Yeah,
it's exactly the same. Like very tortuous process of it has to be perfect, and
yeah.
that's not. I don't think that's a good way to approach art in general because it just.
It's just because you're setting yourself up for failure
Yeah.
essentially. You do that, and I think that sort of initial like excitement that I used to get when I like go on stage, and this sort of buzzing mixture of nerves and excitement was the reason that I got into it, and eventually that just became like just fear, and
Yeah.
so and so yeah, maybe you got to step away for a second. Maybe I'll get back to it one day, with some
Yeah.
perspective. But
Yeah.
I became incredibly nervous.
So acting took a backseat, and you found yourself scratching the creative itch with making films and
Yeah.
those kind of things. So when was the first time that you realized, oh, actually, this is the path. I'm good at this. Like, what was the first successes that you had?
Well, the first film that Take Cover Films made was called A Thousand Empty Glasses, and that I produced and acted in. and my friend, who's also part of Takeover Films, directed it. And through the process of producing it, I was like, I'm watching my friend direct it. I really felt, and the film did extremely well at festivals. It went to like Palm Springs, Raindance. It received some nominations and stuff for best British short and this kind of things. And sort of through that process, I really felt that I wanted to direct. And so the next film we produced was a film called Outside In, which was a film about Stockholm Syndrome, which is where a captor either feels sympathy or is in love with the person that's keeping them hostage.
So I remember this film, and just for the viewers, this is something that we'll be able to share with them, so they can see it. But I remember this because it came to us. This must have been in 2014.
This is our first. This is the first time that we crossed paths, I think, with this film. It probably was 2014, and it played Las Vegas, left off Las Vegas.
When it was Vegas, yes.
Yeah, and it won Best Narrative short there.
Yeah,
well.
It did. Yeah. I remember it strongly because I was on the first round judging team back in those days. I'm not doing that anymore, but and it was one of those films that judging is hard because there's lots to go through, and everything is you give the amount of time that you have to give everything to really kind of try to engage in the work. And sometimes that's hard because you're casting judgment on other people's work, which doesn't often sit right with me. But the point of this story is that there's a couple of films every now and then that just jump out of all the others, and they just hit you in the face, into whatever it is, in terms of its quality, in terms of its storytelling, the narrative, the direction, the themes, whatever it is, something about this film, Outside In. No, not Outside In. What's it called?
It was The Outside In. Yeah.
Outside In.
The Outside In. Yeah.
Yeah. Something about The Outside In, I remember, jumped out at me, and I still remember it strongly to this day. So, let's talk about The Outside In. So, how did it become a thing?
Okay, so The Outside In. So off the back of our initial success with 1,000 Empty Glasses, Takeover Films is a collective of 4 filmmakers at the time who rotated the roles of acting, directing, and producing.
Oh wow! Okay.
And so there was 4 of us, and we'd already done one film. And suddenly, everybody had the itch to direct. So we decided to fundraise for 3 shorts at once and film them over the course of the year. And so the first one we did was The Outside In, which was a collaboration with a writer called Benjamin Noble, who was also a Lambda grad. And it really just came about, we just kind of put the feelers out for scripts. And his was one of the first scripts that I read. And there was a little bit of tussle amongst the guys at Takeover Films of who was going to direct it, but I was pretty insistent because I discovered it was going to be me. And then it was a massive challenge as well. It was a massive undertaking for our second film because it, as you know, it had a huge kind of design element and
big set built in the woods, right?
Exactly, and to kind of represent it's this house with no walls in the middle of the woods, to represent the young girls. This it's essentially to represent the sort of boundaries that in her head. So the actors interact like their walls are there, but really they're all just in her mind. And the film is her slowly breaking down these barriers and realizing that actually she can go. So it was a massive challenge to build this thing in the woods, and get the power to to set up lights and cameras, and the main actor was also the head carpenter. And
really?
We spent
true indie style.
Yeah, exactly. We spent the whole day setting up that set, and then the main actor got out of his work clothes into his costume, and we filmed all night.
That's beautiful. So that did really well. So you won some awards with that. Then what happened next?
Quickly after that, my wife was working at the Central School of Speech and Drama, who have a very interesting MA film course with lots of very talented actors, and they make short films. And she kind of made a connection between me and the head of that course there. And they asked me to put together a film for 5 or 6 graduates. Mm-hmm. And we came up with a film called Among Sweet Flowers and Shades, which went on to screen at London Liftoff, and then went to win the Best Narrative Short at the Season Awards.
It won a Season Awards, didn't it, in 2015,
It did.
16, I think. It's 2016.
Yeah, and that was much more sort of, I don't know how to describe it. It's much more, it's not quite as narratively driven. It's sort of much more sort of a mood and expression and mood about a kind of a sort of, Generation Y, really, and kind of their expectations of the future and sort of what inflicts them kind of now.
they're hard to get right, those films, especially early on in a career, I feel, because they often filmmakers are drawn to that kind of style, but it takes a real, as you said, like if it's not narrative driven, then it's hard to kind of really, it's hard to not get lost in generality and keep it really like every moment is there for a reason kind of thing, which I think that's why it won Season Awards, because it moved towards that for sure.
Yeah.
What was your challenge? What's been the challenges of those films that we've talked about?
Okay, the particular challenge of Among Sweet Flowers is that because it was a graduate film for the Central School of Speech and Drama, I had to make sure that each of the actors was given a kind of a minute and a half of dialogue for their show reel to take away with them at the end. So actually, what screened at their showcase was 3 minutes longer than what screened at Liftoff. And the first cut was like over 20 minutes, and I think it's like 13 minutes now. So we filmed an awful lot of stuff. And I think, like you said, it's when it's not narrative driven, just like really distilling it into the essential parts of the film and making the essential points that we were trying to make was the biggest challenge, particularly in post. And I spent a year probably tinkering with that. There were so many different versions of it before the one that eventually arrived at Liftoff. Yeah.
That's so that perfectionism coming out again.
Yeah, definitely is. Definitely. I have problems letting things go. I usually end up editing. Well, in fact, I always end up editing the films that I make. So yeah, I definitely have a problem with letting it go.
That's interesting. So I didn't realize that you edit everything.
I edit everything. The only film I didn't edit never made it out into the world because I had I've had such a massive fallout with the producers and particularly with the editing team, and I wasn't allowed to go near it, and I eventually withdrew my involvement from it. So
wow.
So yeah. So that goes to. So I mean, I think there's one editor I can think of in the world who I really, really trust and would really, really trust to edit a film, who's also a member of Take Cover Films. But otherwise, yeah. At the moment, I haven't found that person who's give me the
relationship
and just show me something that, like, take my ideas and kind of roll with it, and show me something that I didn't expect, and that's even better.
Oh, interesting. Really interesting.
Yeah.
So Among Sweet Flowers happened. Then what was next?
Among These Flowers. Then recently, I have done a film which was a sort of, in a way, it's like a commission from a charity in Hackney called Odd Eyes Theatre, who do a lot of work with sort of people at risk of offending in Hackney. And they did a play about a real life incident that happened a few years ago, where a young black boy was stabbed and he stumbled into the opening night party of a hipster bar. And the owner took a picture of the blood on the floor and posted it on social media saying #welcome to Hackney. And it caused this giant social media shitstorm. And so the writer of that, Amelia, she kind of took that incident and fictionalized the lives of the two of the boy and of the owner, and sort of places them on the same estate, and essentially kind of creates their worlds and their lives, and then brings them together for this moment. And she did a play. She wrote the play of that, which toured, and then she wanted to turn it into a film, which is where I came in. And and essentially we reduced it down to a short, sort of 20-minute short film. And that's going to be screening at London Liftoff on December 12th. And also, of course, you guys gave production support to that, which was hugely...
Yes, we did.
Yeah. In particular, the manpower. It was great to have Claire Richardson on as production manager, and it was.
She'll be pleased to hear.
Yeah. Yeah, man.
I remember visiting the set, and she was like doing something with sandwiches.
Yeah, she did catering. Production managing on a short essentially means like head, doesn't it? So you do body stuff. But yeah.
So what drives you creatively? Like, what's the root? What's your voice as an artist?
God, need a day to prepare this question.
Whatever comes to your head. Doesn't have to be right.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I think I guess, like, it sounds cliche, but I just enjoy telling stories, know. And I think like in terms of my sort of body of work from my shorts, it's interesting because I feel like essentially The Outside In was probably the strongest narrative short that I did, which was my first one, and then I've kind of gone into a much more sort of experimental phase where I've been playing a lot around, playing with styles and non-linear stories. And now I think like having been through that, now I just really want to get back to telling like clear, concise, powerful stories. And so I guess that's what drives me, and the world around me, my own personal experiences.
You should probably mention as well. Is that what you hope to achieve with Rush of Blood, your feature that you script?
My feature script is exactly a sort of manifestation of what I was just saying. It's like it's as clear a concise a story as I could tell. Is extremely.
So that came to Cannes with us.
So yeah, so this
representation.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, it's a feature film script that I wrote, which you guys hosted a reading of as part of the Screenwriters Showcase, which was extremely useful to hear it out loud. And then you guys took it to Cannes to represent it there, and where it received some interest. And I'm kind of just pushing that and shopping that. This is
how's that going? Are you in talks with?
I've spoken to a few people. I need to be honest. I need to jump on it and kind of really get on that train and push it.
It's hard when there's a million things going on, isn't it?
Exactly. There's work. I have a child. We're renovating this house. So it's this whole like juggling act, but yeah, I mean, just kind of getting back to what that is, and also probably as well, it's quite what makes it challenging for me is it's quite a high. I set out with the intention to write this low budget road trip movie where you're just in a car and a few actors and you just film it.
You just shoot it, whatever happens.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But my imagination definitely got away with this stuff, and it's it's not that easy. It probably needs a bit of budget to do it. But yeah, I guess like that as well. But that film is extremely personal to me, even though essentially it's this sort of pulpy action adventure thriller stroke horror sort of movie. But essentially it's based on my own relationship with my wife. It's about having, they've just recently had a young child, and it's also about kind of my own sort of creative journey, essentially. Essentially the film is they travel. It's two married filmmakers who get into Sundance Film Festival, and they travel from they live in the Yukon, and they go on a road trip all the way to Park City, Utah, and it's kind of about they're in this creative wilderness, and then they get presented this golden opportunity, and they're really having a problem grasping it with both hands. And I think that's my own creative journey. That feels really relevant,
So if there was something that's a whole conversation in itself, isn't it? Yeah. Like failing to take the opportunities that like appear in front of you. But sometimes it's not failing, because sometimes it's like, I know I'm just talking about myself, but like sometimes in the moment I'm like, fuck's sakes, I should have monopolized on that opportunity. But then in retrospect, I'm like, actually, there was a good reason for that happening, and like other things. Oh, we've frozen. Oh, you're back.
Yep, you're back.
Sorry.
You're back.
No, wait.
Yeah, it was a good reason happening. That's where you were. Yep.
There's a good reason for it happening, because in the moment it seems like it's a problem, but then you're looking back on it and you see that actually good things came from that decision that you weren't able to see in the moment. I'm just talking about myself there.
No, but I think you're right. And I guess, again, sort of a theme of the film is like the journey isn't the destination. It's everything that happens way. And so, we're always constantly like running to achieve this thing, the ultimate goal. But it's not that. It's not really a straight line to that goal. And if you get too focused on that, then you miss everything else that's happening around you on the way. So.
And it's hard if in the mix you're striving for perfection as well.
Well, yeah. Yeah, exactly.
So like, what would you, you're old and grey, you're on your deathbed, what would you like to have accomplished with your career?
If I could just even if I just made one, I mean, that probably wouldn't satisfy me ultimately, but for me right now, without thinking without making the
okay, not old and grey, then maybe like, yeah.
I think for me right now, I would just love to make a feature, just to take all the kind of work that I've done in shorts and everything that I've learned in shorts, and just distill it into a bigger story, and something that is, something that's personal, something that I direct. I'd love it to be something that I've written and directed. So on my deathbed, as long as I can get that feature done right now, I'll be happy with that on my deathbed. But after that, then who knows? Then maybe I'll have a different deathbed goal.
Fair enough. Yeah, I mean, perhaps deathbed is a bit extreme. And again, it's nice to take one thing at a time, right? Rather than think, oh God, what the hell have I? By the end of it, what the hell am I going to achieve? Like, what is the next step?
Yeah, it's like
we've always tried to
game by game. Football Manager, it's like just focus on the next game. Focus on the next.
Yeah, 100%.
That's
So what would you say to people just starting out? What's like, if you could give yourself one piece of advice when you were beginning this journey, like what would you say to yourself?
I think my advice to myself would be to not detract from the creative process or anything like that. Put all your focus on that, but to put more attention into the afterlife of your film. And that's not just about submitting to festivals. It's about how you're going to market it, how you're going to market it online, like everything to do. Just do everything you can to get as many people to see your film as possible, I think. And so putting some money aside for that, because that costs money. It's not just about application, so that would be my advice. And also the two things actually I think I'd say is put some money aside for reshoots. You always want one every single time. If you can do that, it's really, really hard when you're doing it such a shoestring. Put some money aside for reshoots and put some money aside for marketing and publicity, because they get disregarded so often. And even me saying this and giving this advice, I ignore this advice all the time. So, but like if you just, you're kind of
singing our hymn sheet. Sorry to jump in. You're singing our hymn sheet there, because that's exactly what we that is the core, one of the core messages of the network. And what we've come up against is that if you make a film and it needs as many eyeballs as possible, and you need to think about how that's going to happen, because on a shoestring budget, as you said, you don't have distributors working for you. You don't have sales agents working for you. You have to learn the marketing skills yourself. And if you don't do it, then, or have somebody that can help you with it, then
I think because I think like there are a number. I think there are so many filmmakers, including myself, who are extremely daunted by that part of the process, who don't necessarily have the natural and instinctive skills to do it. And I think like as early as possible in your filmmaking career, if you can find some like Goldsmith student, who's going into publicity and marketing and wants to work in film and the arts, and make an early collaboration with them, so that in that way you can both help each other grow. Like I think that's a person that I really need in my life, is that kind of person. And I'm inspired by my own advice. I think I'm going to go and look for that person.
So what's next?
Actually, I did another short film with which has kind of just come out with they're sort of a drama group, an acting group. For people who are coming to acting untrained, who are coming to it sort of later in life and sort of thinking, okay, maybe acting is the thing for me. I recently did a short film with them. They're called The Real Scene. I did a short film with them called Nobody Sees, which is going to be at the Gold Movie Awards in January in Regent's Park Theatre. And so kind of what I did on that film was I devised and wrote, I sort of created this film with the actors in the group. And that's kind of inspired some ideas for a new feature script as well. So I've been sort of gently outlining a new feature based on the sort of work that I did with those guys. So that's kind of what's next. And also I'm going to continue to push A Rush of Blood. And I've also got a BFI funding application in for a short called Robin that was written by two friends of mine, two actors, who very, very good actors. One actually is a member of Takeover Films. And so fingers crossed we get some funding for that in the new year.
How do you pay the bills? I know you work for. Sorry, answer the question. I'm not going to answer it for you.
I'm a freelance filmmaker, so I direct, edit, and produce essentially kind of online content or corporate video. My niche thing, the main sort of source of my income, is working on theatre trailers or theatre.
Yeah, I was going to say. So I know that you do. How do you find that with your creative stuff? I guess it's all creative, but how do you balance?
Well, I think some of it is creative. I think some of the corporate stuff is you're just moving through the motions, and it's just about having like a nicely lit interview with some cutaways and just making the client happy. I think some of the theatre stuff, it depends. Some of it's just like they just want a montage of sections of the show with some media quotes, 5 stars, great show, and there's a backflip. And that's, and that's like the kind of thing. And that's fine. It's kind of fun if the show's dynamic and interesting. But often when they're looking for something conceptual, then it is quite creative. So you're coming up with an idea for the show, and it functions a little bit more like a sort of trailer for a film. And I just did a conceptual trailer for Once the Musical, which is online.
Oh, wow, okay.
Yeah, it's really cool. You should check it out. And so obviously at times I find it extremely enjoyable. Other times, it's also time consuming as well. So it can, it definitely conflicts with creative goals. But I feel extremely fortunate that I make my living working, at least within the larger arena of where my ambitions lie, and within the kind of film industry.
100%. Yeah, there's not many people that can say that, unfortunately.
Yeah,
in this sphere.
Yeah, so I'm extremely fortunate, and it's particularly able to develop. It's fortunate because I'm particularly able to develop my technical skills, in terms of post-production or camera work, all this kind of stuff.
Yeah, 100%.
I'm still able to engage my brain creatively, and I come into all kinds of things. I did some video design for the young. I video designed that show, The Jungle, and I got to work with Stephen Daltrey doing that. So there are all kinds of little strange things that come across my path.
Yeah, it's fun as well. Every day is different, I guess.
Yeah, it's fun. It's fun.
It's cool. So where can people find out more about you if they want to look you up? Okay, has Take Cover Films got a website, or you've got a social presence?
We do, but it's extremely it hasn't been updated in a very long time. And essentially, we made 6 films together, and there's 4 individual filmmakers, and they're all very much kind of doing their own thing at the moment.
Sure.
Hoping to kind of come back together on this film, the BFI film. But in terms of finding my work and a lot of Take Cover Films work, you can go to tristanshepherd.net.
tristanshepherd.net.
And it's Shepherd, like a herder, an actual herder of sheep.
EARD.
SHEPHERD.
Yeah. Perfect. And we'll put links to The Outside In and to I've gone blank on the other.
Among Sweet Flowers and Shades.
Among Sweet Flowers and Shades. Yeah. We'll put links to that as well, so that people can find them. So check it out, have a look, and we will connect with you. Are you coming to London next week?
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. So I'll see you there.
You're screening on Wednesday.
On election night, the 12th.
Election night, isn't it?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
I know.
I've totally forgotten about all of that. Do you know?
Really? Have you really? Wow.
I mean, I haven't at all. But I'm trying to because
it's so depressing.
Yeah. I mean, that's a different topic entirely.
Yeah.
But
it is. Yeah. Let's not get into that.
Yeah, let's definitely not get into that. I guess by the time people see this, then it'll all be in the past. So we'll see. But fingers crossed, eh?
Yeah.
All right, buddy. It's really good. It's really good to talk to you. And let's catch up. I'll see you next week, but we'll catch up soon.
Yeah. Cool,
right,
man. Good to see you, and thanks for having me on here.
Yeah, no worries. All right. Lots of love. Take care.
Cool, man. Take care.
Speak to you later. Bye.